Welcome to the world's first straight talk Solarcast. This is your go-to podcast for answers about solar. Brought to you by Solar Harmonics in Northern California, who invite their customers to own their energy by purchasing a solar panel system for their home, business, or farm. Each episode, we discuss questions facing people making the decision to go solar. The solutions to your questions are given to you straight by one of the leading experts in the solar industry, Jamie Duran, president of Solar Harmonics. Feel free to search our library for answers to questions that you're facing when considering solar. And now, here's Adam Duran, our host with the questions, and Jamie Duran, our solar expert with Straight Talk Solarcast.
Hello, Jamie.
Hello, Adam.
How's everything in the land of solar this week?
Not as dire as it was last week. You know, it was kind of the ripping the Band-Aid off of the solar tax credit. And what we were talking about last week, for anyone who missed it, I highly recommend going back and listening. But the House of Representatives has approved the budget, and virtually everything to do with solar, any kind of incentive, has been removed. And in addition, all leasing is out. And in addition, if you have a commercial solar project that's in process, you have 60 days to get it started in construction before, or as soon as the bill is signed. So let's just say that's July 1st. You will have until September 1st to begin construction. And that's not exactly how commercial projects work. So it's
wow.
That's
a timeline that I've never. Wow. Okay.
In addition, I mean, then there's questions about the domestic. If you use domestic equipment, you're eligible for this 10% bonus. Now, for example, if you have $1 million solar project, and it's eligible for the $300,000 federal tax credit, no matter what equipment you use. But then if you use a minimum of 41% domestic equipment, kind of quote unquote made in the USA equipment, you're eligible for another 10%. Instead of getting $300,000 back on that $1 million project, you get $400,000 back, and the depreciation expense. So it's almost 70% of the project comes back as a form of incentives, and that's pretty significant. And so, lots of people are super excited to see what's happening. And as we mentioned, the residential 30% tax credit goes away completely, and when it goes away is January 1st. And so if you are thinking about going solar and batteries and ground mount, rooftop, all that kind of stuff, normally people take a couple months. It's a big commitment. And if they waited a couple months, we will not be able to guarantee that PG&E will have approved the system and have it be online, which is the requirement to get that 30% tax credit.
Wow.
So December 31st, PG&E approves your system. Woohoo. January 1st, sad face, because you waited too long. And a lot of people I don't really like being pressured. Come on, that's not how I do it. Well, and there will be a cost. There will be, unfortunately, there will be a group of people who are really upset, and no one told me, and so forth and so on.
Yep.
But if you're listening to this podcast, you have been told the system has to be fully online and fully working. And then this is in addition to all of the solar tariffs and the net energy metering 3.0. And then if you sell your house right now and you have NEM 2.0, there's a bill with California legislature now, if you sell the home, it automatically goes to NEM 3.0. And so, if I talk to most real estate people, you could say NEM 100.0, and they have no idea what you're talking about. But
yeah, it's okay.
And so, in any event, it's going to get crazy, and a lot of the feedback, even in the solar industry, that we're seeing is good. We can't wait for the tax credit to go away. We can't wait for all these incentives to go away, because the solar industry has ruined itself with all the bad players. And so just this week, Mosaic Solar cut all of their funding. And so basically, if you have a project that's, you got a client approved through Mosaic, and you're installing solar panels on their roof, you are not going to get paid. And that is like, what? Well, what?
What?
How does that work?
Oh boy.
They're not taking. So anyway, Mosaic Solar is interesting because Jared Kushner, who is the son-in-law of the president, invested $100 million into that company. And so if that company goes out of biz, he's out his 100 mil. I think. I haven't followed up on it too often, but it's pretty brutal. And this is just kind of the beginning. There's going to be lots and lots of fallout from this, and lots of people losing tons of money. And so that is really going to be why this makes sense, because a lot of people already have solar, and we are already seeing what has happened to the market when one of these major players goes out of business, and those customers are virtually screwed. What I'm talking about is SunPower went out of business in 2024, and their system is proprietary. So they have their own solar panels, their own inverter, their own monitoring system, and their own batteries, and their own installers. So let's just say your battery needs support. Who do you call? You have to call a SunPower installer. Generally, you call the one that installed it. If they're out of business, now you got to try and find a SunPower installer, and you have to pay for that. And so but what has happened is those systems get locked up by the monitoring system, and then no one can get into it. There is a new company that's kind of taken over, but that's almost a year later. And so if your solar panels have been out, and we've heard horror stories of the installer installed this whole solar SunPower system, and then because they weren't going to get paid, they just walked away. So the poor customer has their loan started and have been paying on the loan for 3 years, and the system is still not connected to the grid, so they can't use anything. And so they basically have a fancy ornament up on the roof that they're going to be paying for the next 25 years. And if they say, well, I'm not paying, well, there goes your credit. And a lot of them have liens on the house, and they can force the sale of the house. So it's not like you could just, well, come and get it. Nope. There's nobody to come and get it. Yeah, and there's nobody to fix it. And there's nobody, to monitor. And it feels like half my day is spent dealing with, system issues and system requests, and people selling their home and wanting us to transfer it over. And, it's a lot of work. And if the solar companies are not around, you're kind of on your own. And when I mean on your own, you will have a non-functioning system. So this is why it's really critical. And I normally say contact your Congress people and senators, but now what we want to do, and lots of solar companies are saying, use our blanket, our script, and send emails, send tweets, send Instagram messages and everything. And that's great, except those largely get ignored. And so even if your U.S. senator has already said, I'm voting against it. Say you're in California or a Democratic state, they are going to vote against it, but they're really not. They don't understand why this is going to make so much sense to vote against it. And so they're really pounding the Republican senators, and they're overwhelmed. But there's a downside for them to go against the red wave, and that's they lose their funding in the next election. And so they're not excited to do that. But both Georgia and Tennessee are on the hook to lose about $14 billion in solar projects because companies have started battery manufacturing and solar panel manufacturing, all because of the tax credit. And they're saying if that goes away, then we'll see you later, and we'll just leave this empty building. And that's the way it goes. And all those people with jobs and the economies and how much work it took to bring a Bosch battery plant to rural Tennessee that had nothing else going on. They're not too excited. So what we're going to do is ask our listeners, even if you already have solar, already talked about why it makes sense for you, still contact your senator, even your congressperson, and a 30-word email or a 30-word tweet or a 30-word phone call to explain, hey, if my solar guy goes out of business, I'm going to be screwed and I'm going to blame you. And that's or hey, if my battery in my state, my battery plant in my state goes out of business, I'm going to be out of a job, and I'm going to blame you. And so those kind of things go a lot further than just talking about, hey, we think this is unfair and I don't want to lose my job, but because that doesn't go too far. But I think the personal approach, I know our company, we have probably 10 to 12 megawatts of solar projects that are in the we need to wait and see what happens phase, and that means cancel should all of these incentives go away. And so, 10 to 12 megawatts, if you multiply that, that's 20 to $30 million of business over the next 5 years, which is quite a bit. So we're not excited, but I mean, we bring in local installers. We buy tons of equipment. We pay tons of taxes and sales taxes, and all of that goes away if these incentives go away. So that's why it's going to be so important to let the decision makers of the Republican Party and even the Democratic Party know what the real impacts are. And I've seen 800,000 people work in solar nationwide, and that's quite a bit. That's a big group. And yes, there's bad players for sure, and they are getting weeded out. But and if the lease goes away, that's going to eliminate 90% of them. And then if the companies like Mosaic that charge a 30% loan fee, if those guys go away, then that's going to help strengthen solar. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how things go. But it's I'm going to post a link to who is your senator, and then I'm just imploring people to write a super quick email to that person and send it in and say, here's my personal story of why solar cannot go away. And what they're calling this is kind of a rug pull. So going from 30% to zero, or it just doesn't make. And so could it be phased out? Sure. PG&E would love that too, because then they could increase their rates accordingly and still motivate people to go solar. But in any event, it's happening. And so, we think we will be around because we keep it lean and mean, and we have a great reputation. And we listen to our customers, and we don't install, one brand of solar panel and one brand of it. It's very diversified. So we're always looking down the road to see, okay, what happens if this company goes out of business? And would it be painful? Big time. If, one of the big solar, say inverter companies like Solar Edge or Enphase go out of business, that's going to be major pain, because both of those systems are proprietary. If your Solar Edge system goes out, you can't just go and replace it with an Enphase system. You have to basically redo the entire installation, and that's going to be expensive. And hopefully there will be installers who will be around to do that. And the way it's looking, it's especially other solar companies that I'm talking to, they are already planning December 31st as their last day. So we will see how it goes. What do you think, Adam?
I have a question in that. How are you, because when as a homeowner, if I'm thinking about getting a solar panel system, and then I sign a contract with a solar company, and then they do the permitting process, and then the PG&E permission to operate process, those involve things that aren't just at the installer level. Right, the installer, I can call up and say, hey, when is it scheduled for? They'll give me a date when they should be able to finish it. But the other parts of that project are beyond the homeowner's control, and I think the installer's control. So how can we be expected to get through those last two hurdles, the permitting process and then the PG&E permission to operate process, when both of those are not motivated by money. I mean, they're not. I mean, you can tell an installer, "Hey, I'll pay you double. Get this up right, by whatever." But without, how do you? I mean, how's that supposed to work? I guess
It's brutal because
okay.
it's really, really time intensive. We have to get new permit drawings because the building department's not going to just transfer it over to rando installer. You are now essentially taking ownership for it, and no installer is going to do that. They're not going to say, "Okay, yeah, we didn't install it, but we're going to take responsibility for it." So it's all of that has to be worked out. And then same thing with PG&E. PG&E requires the installer to warrant the system for 10 years. And, there can be a maintenance contract involved or something, but yeah, it's not well thought out. And, we just yesterday I had a company where the property manager had provided the wrong meter number to us. So when we did the interconnection, we said, hey, it's connected to meter, whatever, meter X. And 4 years later, the customer says, hey, we've never gotten any credit. They call PG&E and say, oh no, everything was done right. Everything is done right. And it took a whole review process to figure out, we used the meter number provided by the client, and it was the wrong meter number. And so we had to switch it out. But I mean, that's 4 years later. Can you imagine trying to do that with an installer who's not in business anymore? It's pandemonium, but we were able to get it. We were able to reduce that chaos and get it worked out. But if we were another installer trying to clean that up, I would say for a homeowner, I'd say plan to spend anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 on that process to just get it approved. And we've helped lots of clients that way. But they are not so excited about paying it, and collecting is really difficult because once it's turned on, we don't really have any recourse after that. So there's a contract and small claims court and all that, but who wants to go through that? So that's what we get for being nice, is we got to try and collect from these people. In any event, most customers are super happy, but we do get occasional ones. But the occasional ones make us go, why would we help anyone? They're the ones that chose the installer that went out of business because they went with the cheapest. And, we always say in our first, we are not the cheapest, but we're still around. So in any event, that's what's going to happen. But all the people who have solar already, these are the ones we really need to motivate to get moving, because when PG&E threatened their NEM 2.0 status in California solar customers went nuts. They contacted everyone in their political sphere. Even city council was telling me they were getting calls. And, these are the really people that we need to mobilize, because there's 3 or 4 million in California that have solar. And across the country, there's several tens of millions. And so if we can mobilize those folks to protect their solar panel system, it's not just for the new people. It is also for the existing people, because if their solar installer goes out of business, it's going to be real painful for them down the road for sure. So, yeah, we need to protect it, or at least make it so it's a staged phase out, not an immediate phase out, which is quite cuckoo. But they got to balance the budget somehow, I guess.
Well, overwhelming the permitting and the and PG&E at the end of this year, that probably is.
And equipment suppliers too. I mean, they have forecasts, and they're thinking, okay, we're going to have this many solar panels and this many Powerwalls, and we're running into that right now, where Powerwall 3s are going to be in real short supply. So if we have a 2-month delay on those, that puts us past our July 31st deadline. So we'll do our best. But anywho, we're crossing these bridges each day. Each day is like, oh my God, it's kind of crazy, but that's how it goes. Solar coaster is what we call it. But Crazier and crazier.
Welcome to the solar coaster.
Oh, yeah.
With your host, Jamie, and sidekick
Your tour
Adam.
guide, I'd say.
Wow.
Yep.
All right, Jamie, we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks for taking a few more minutes out of your week to learn a little bit more about solar. It is always something happening in the land of solar. Wow. It's never a dull week or a dull day, it seems like, especially recently. So we appreciate you taking a listen. And if you have a question for Jamie for an upcoming episode, you can go to our Facebook page, Straight Talk Solarcast. Send us a message through there and we'll be sure to get to it on an upcoming episode. If you would like to check out a library of our past episodes, you can go to solarharmonics.com. Click on the podcast link at the top of the page and you can search to your heart's content. Finally, if you have a friend considering going solar, this would be an excellent podcast to refer to them because it will save them thousands upon thousands of dollars over the life of their system, and time is of the essence. So get going, people. And check out the show notes because there are definitely going to be some really important links in there that you can use to help. Until next time, everyone. See you.
That's all for now. Thank you for listening to this episode of Straight Talk Solarcast with solar expert Jamie Duran. Join us each week for more answers to your solar questions. Speaking of questions, got some? Email us at solarcast@solarharmonics.com and we'll be sure to give you an answer in an upcoming episode. This episode of Straight Talk Solarcast is brought to you by Solar Harmonics, the leading solar energy developer in Northern California, who invite you to own your energy. Visit them on the web at www.solarharmonics.com.